For decades, the people of Harlow have whispered her name. The Black-Veiled Lady. A ghostly figure seen atop the belfry when the night is still, and the air turns cold. Her presence, an omen of sorrow, of secrets deep buried beneath the cathedral's ancient stones. But her story, like many in Harlow, was silenced. And the truth was hidden in the darkness. What began as innocence, as trust, was destroyed by sin. This is her story. And his. In the quiet town of Harlow, a new figure arrives, cloaked in the guise of benevolence. Father Ralph, sent to bring spiritual solace, hides a darkness that will soon unravel. Father Ralph, with his warm demeanor and kind words, quickly becomes a beloved figure in Harlow. But beneath his comforting exterior lies a hidden agenda. In Harlow, where traditions ran deep and secrets even deeper, Father Ralph Callahan was a man revered by all. At the helm of St. Agnes Church, his sermons brought solace to the troubled, absolution to the guilty, and a stern warning to the wayward. But not all sins can be forgiven, especially the ones we refuse to confess. Margaret, poor Margaret. The town remembers her as a lost soul, young, trusting, and a little too naive. She confided in those she believed could save her, but salvation was never meant for her. Not in this place. Not under Father Ralph's gaze. It was a warm summer evening when Margaret first stepped into the confessional. She had always been a devout girl, faithful, kind, but burdened by a secret too heavy for her tender heart. The shadows of her confession would soon change the course of her life forever.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I am with child, and I cannot keep it, Father Ralph.
My child, do you understand the weight of what you've done? To take a life. It is not a sin easily washed away.
Father Ralph had a way with words. His calm, authoritative voice could ease the minds of those who sought forgiveness. But not Margaret's. That day, something colder, more unforgiving, entered her heart. She came to him, not just for forgiveness, but for guidance, for understanding. But Father Ralph was hiding his own secret, one that twisted in the shadows beneath the sacred robe he wore. To the townspeople, Father Ralph was a righteous man, a pillar of virtue. But behind closed doors, he was tormented by more than the sins of his congregation. For the sins that haunted him most were his own.
God help me, Margaret, if only she had kept quiet. If only things had been different, but I cannot let the truth escape.
Father Ralph wasn't born in Harlow, nor did he plan to spend his life in a small, forgotten village. His journey to St. Agnes was not by choice, but by circumstance, an assignment that seemed ordinary on the surface, but for Ralph, it was a way to leave behind something far more complicated. He arrived quietly, one overcast afternoon, with little fanfare. A new priest for a quiet parish, he was to be a fresh face for the community. But what the villagers of Harlow didn't know was that this was not a promotion, it was a retreat. Father Ralph had requested the transfer, far from the busy city where he had once served. The isolation of Harlow offered him something he desperately sought: escape. Escape from the whispers that had followed him in his previous post. Escape from the shadow of a mistake that threatened to unravel everything he had built. In his old life, Father Ralph had been well respected, a rising figure in the church, admired for his devotion and eloquence. But behind the sermons, behind the confessional booth, there had been something, someone. A woman. And though nothing was ever proven, the rumors of an inappropriate relationship had begun to spread. No one spoke of it openly, but the eyes of his superiors had grown cold, and whispers had grown louder. Rather than face the inevitable scandal, Father Ralph had made a choice. He asked for a reassignment, a quiet place, far from the prying eyes of the city. Somewhere no one would know his name. Somewhere he could start again. And so, he came to Harlow, a village small enough that the past wouldn't follow him. A place where he could rebuild his life, regain his faith, and perhaps, find peace once more.
This will be different. It has to be.
But the past has a way of clinging to us, no matter how far we run. And though Harlow seemed like the perfect refuge, it would soon become clear that the ghosts of Father Ralph's past were not so easily escaped. Harlow, a village small in size but heavy with history, sat nestled between rolling hills and ancient woodlands. It was the kind of place where time seemed to slow down, where everyone knew your name, your family, and the stories passed down through generations. A place where gossip traveled fast, but secrets, those could be buried deep beneath the surface. Its cobblestone streets wound like veins through the heart of the village, connecting the small homes, the bakery, and the general store. Every corner held memories, stories etched into the stone walls. The scent of fresh bread always lingered in the air, mingling with the crisp scent of the fields that surrounded the town. But the heart of Harlow was St. Agnes Church, a modest structure built centuries ago, its bell tower ringing out every Sunday, calling the faithful to prayer. It stood at the village's center, its walls weathered in gray, like a guardian watching over the souls of Harlow. And within those walls, Father Ralph held sway, beloved by all for his kind words and comforting sermons. Harlow was a village where nothing seemed to happen, or so the villagers liked to believe. A peaceful place where you could leave your door unlocked, where the greatest excitement came from the yearly harvest festival. But beneath the surface of this quiet life, there were shadows. Secrets whispered between neighbors, hushed conversations over fences, and the things left unsaid behind closed doors. Margaret grew up in this world, beloved by the village for her sweet nature and gentle spirit. To many, she was the perfect picture of innocence, an image that made what was to come all the more tragic. Trusting as she was, Margaret never suspected that even in Harlow, where everything seemed so pure, there could be such darkness. And so, in a village that seemed so perfect, so wholesome, there was still room for sin to take root. Father Ralph, a man adored by his parishioners, had once believed that Harlow was his sanctuary, a place where he could live a life of service. But as with all things too good to be true, beneath Harlow's silent veil, lay a darkness, one that Father Ralph had unknowingly become a part of. As the sun rises over the quiet town of Harlow, a new chapter begins with the arrival of Father Ralph. Unbeknownst to the townspeople, his arrival heralds the return of an old and restless spirit.
Welcome to Harlow, Father. We're glad to have you with us.
In the heart of Harlow, Father Ralph was a beloved figure as the newly appointed parish priest. His kindness and dedication to the community were well known, and he was seen as a pillar of strength and compassion. To the villagers, he was a source of comfort, a guiding light in their daily lives.
Good morning, Mrs. Harris. How are your flowers blooming today?
Oh, Father Ralph, they're just lovely thanks to your prayers. And how are you today?
Well, thank you. Just here to check on everyone and make sure all is well. It's such a pleasure to see the community thriving.
Look, Father Ralph, I drew a picture of the church. Do you like it?
It's beautiful. You've captured the church perfectly. I'll put this up in my office so everyone can see your wonderful work.
I picked this for you, Father Ralph. It's for being so nice.
Thank you, my dear. It's lovely. Your kindness warms my heart.
Father Ralph has done so much for us. He's always organizing these events, making sure everyone has what they need.
Yes, he's such a blessing to this town, always thinking of others.
Your help today means so much. It's people like you who make our community strong and supportive.
Thank you, Father. It's an honor to be part of something so meaningful.
To the people of Harlow, Father Ralph was a beacon of goodness. His love for the children, his charitable acts, and his unwavering support made him a cherished figure. Yet beneath the surface of this endearing exterior, secrets lay buried, concealed by the very facade that endeared him to all. In Harlow, the lines between virtue and vice are often blurred. And sometimes, the most comforting appearances mask the darkest truths. He quickly endeared himself to the people of Harlow, his sermons filled with compassion and wisdom. He seemed the perfect priest, a man of the cloth who had come to bring light to their small village. But deep down, Ralph knew that the darkness within him still lingered, hidden beneath the robes of his new life. And then there was Margaret. She was one of the first to approach him after Mass, her eyes full of innocence, her trust unshakable. Father Ralph saw in her something pure, something untouched by the shadows that haunted him. But he also saw something dangerous, because with her, he could feel the same temptation that had nearly ruined him before. Harlow was supposed to be his sanctuary, his fresh start. But in the quiet of the village, in the solitude of St. Agnes, Father Ralph's demons would only grow stronger. And the sins he thought he had left behind, were just beginning to unfold. The first few nights in Harlow, Father Ralph had slept soundly. The village was quiet, peaceful. But soon, the peace he had sought began to unravel. It started as whispers, faint, distant, like the rustling of leaves in the wind. Then came the dreams. Dreams of a woman's face, pale and cold, her eyes lifeless, yet staring at him with an accusation he could never escape. In the quiet of the night, the walls of the rectory seemed to close in. Father Ralph would wake, drenched in sweat, heart pounding, certain he wasn't alone. And he was right. Her name had been Lilith. She had come to him in his last parish, young, vulnerable, and looking for guidance. But the relationship had quickly spiraled into something dangerous, something forbidden. When she had come to him, tearful, desperate, and with child, his child, Father Ralph had panicked. And in a moment of fear, of anger, of weakness, he had done the unthinkable. He told himself it was an accident. He had only meant to silence her, to stop her from ruining everything he had worked for. But as he watched the life drain from her eyes, he knew that no amount of prayer could absolve him of what he had done. And now, in the quiet village of Harlow, she had come back to follow him. At first, it was subtle. The faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air, the briefest flicker of a shadow just out of sight. He would catch glimpses of her reflection in the windows, or feel the lightest touch on his shoulder when he was alone.
No, it's just in my mind. She's gone, leave me.
But Lilith wasn't gone. She had followed him here, to this new life he was trying so desperately to create. And every night, her presence grew stronger. The church, which had once felt like a sanctuary, now felt like a prison. The cold stone walls echoed with the sound of her voice, soft at first, like a whisper in the wind.
Ralph, you cannot hide, you cannot run from me.
He would see her in the corners of his vision, just out of reach. Her pale form drifting through the darkened halls, her eyes never leaving him. But it wasn't until the night she appeared at the foot of his bed that Father Ralph realized, he could never escape her. There she stood, Lilith. Her once beautiful face now twisted in death, her hands outstretched toward him, beckoning. She didn't speak, but her eyes said everything. She was waiting for him. Waiting for him to atone. Waiting for him to face what he had done.
Leave me, please leave me, I'm sorry.
Sorry won't save you, Ralph. You took my life. Now I take yours.
Every night she grew closer, her presence stronger, her gaze more accusing. Ralph knew he could not escape her. No matter how hard he prayed, how much he begged for forgiveness, Lilith's ghost would never leave him. For there are some sins that even God's grace cannot wash away. But as Father Ralph takes his place in the town, an old and tormented soul awakens. Lilith, the black-veiled lady, stirs from her slumber, her restless spirit seeking revenge and stirring fear.
Have you seen her? The woman in the black veil. I swear I heard her crying in the night.
What is this? Am I losing my mind? There's something not right about this place.
Lilith's torment grows more intense with each passing night. Her ghostly figure, veiled in darkness, becomes a symbol of the town's deepest fears and unresolved grief.
I understand that there have been some unsettling occurrences, but we must remain calm and not let fear control us. It's nothing.
As Father Ralph becomes more entangled in the mysteries of Harlow, Lilith's restless spirit weaves a web of fear and torment. Her presence is a chilling reminder of the town's buried secrets and the dark forces at play. The veil of darkness descends upon Harlow, and the restless spirit of Lilith continues her haunting vigil. The town's peace is shattered, and the truth behind the torment is yet to be uncovered. Weeks passed after Margaret's final confession. She was never seen in town again. The whispers began. Some said she had run away in shame, others claimed she took her own life. But only Father Ralph knew the truth. And the truth had a way of seeping through the silence, like the rain that soaked the earth on the night she disappeared. As the months dragged on, the church grew colder, its walls seemingly whispering Margaret's name. And Father Ralph, the man with all the answers, began to hear something else, something no prayer could silence. The sound of a child crying.
It's nothing, just the wind. There is no child.
But the cries grew louder, piercing the night. And with them, Margaret's shadow returned, haunting the very place that had damned her. The people of Harlow began to notice the changes in their priest. His sermons grew more erratic, his eyes darker, filled with something that resembled fear. He remembered that night. The stolen glances, the touch that went too far, the affair he would never admit. Margaret was too trusting, too naive. She believed in him, in his words, in the salvation he promised. But he was never her savior. He was her undoing. Before the darkness took root, before the confessions and the guilt, there was another side to the story, a time when Margaret and Father Ralph's paths first crossed. In the eyes of the town, theirs was a bond of mentorship and guidance, nothing more. But like all things buried beneath the surface, the truth was far more complicated. Margaret was just 18 when she first met Father Ralph. She had grown up in Harlow, a small, tight-knit village where everyone knew one another. Fresh-faced and full of hope, she often visited the church, drawn to its peace, to the man who preached words of wisdom. Father Ralph, newly appointed at St. Agnes Church, took an immediate interest in the young woman, offering her advice, guidance, and, over time, something more.
Father Ralph, thank you for your kind words during today's sermon. I always leave feeling lighter, more at peace, Father.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Margaret. You have such a pure heart, a rare gift in this world. If ever you need guidance, my door is always open, Margaret.
In the beginning, it seemed innocent enough. Margaret, a devout young woman, and Father Ralph, the trusted priest. But over the months, as Margaret's visits became more frequent, as their conversations grew longer, something else began to bloom, a dangerous, unspoken connection that neither could fully admit. They often met in the evenings, when the rest of the village was asleep. Margaret would come to him with questions about faith, about life, and soon, about feelings she didn't fully understand.
Father, sometimes I feel things I cannot explain. I feel drawn to you. Is that wrong?
But Margaret, we are all human. To feel is not a sin. But we must be careful, for there are lines that should not be crossed.
But the line had already been blurred. Father Ralph knew it. Margaret, though innocent, could feel it too. And in that moment, when the veil of propriety slipped, their fates were sealed. A touch, a glance held too long, what began as spiritual guidance slowly grew into something forbidden. As time passed, their meetings grew more intimate, and the once bright and hopeful connection between them became shadowed by desire, guilt, and secrecy. Margaret trusted Father Ralph with all her heart, never knowing the weight of the sin she would come to carry, the sin that would forever bind them. And so, it was no surprise that when Margaret's world began to unravel, when she found herself carrying the child she could not keep, she turned to the only man she thought could save her, unaware that he was the one who had led her to ruin. One night, as Father Ralph stood at the altar, he felt a presence, something watching him from the shadows. When he turned, there she was. Margaret, standing at the back of the church, her pale, ghostly figure holding the child she was never allowed to keep.
You cannot hide, Father. Not from me. Not from him.
The priest's heart raced, guilt clawing at him. He tried to speak, to repent, but the words stuck in his throat. He fell to his knees, begging for mercy, but the child's cries drowned out his prayers. Margaret stepped closer, her eyes filled with sorrow and vengeance.
Do you hear him, Father? Our child. The one you abandoned. The one you condemned.
In that moment, Father Ralph knew there would be no absolution, no forgiveness. He had sealed his fate the moment he turned Margaret away. The veil between life and death had lifted, and beneath it lay the truth he could no longer deny. Margaret and her child were here to stay. Father Ralph had hoped that by ascending the church's belfry, he could find peace. It was the highest point in Harlow, overlooking the entire village, a place where he could feel closer to God, closer to forgiveness. But on this night, there would be no peace.
They're just memories. Just my mind playing tricks on me. They can't be real.
But Ralph knew, deep down, that it wasn't his mind. It was something far worse. His past had come back for him. And now, there were not one, but two faces haunting him in the dark. He had run from Lilith's ghost, fled from her accusing eyes. But in Harlow, he had made another mistake. Another life taken too soon. Margaret.
Ralph, you took my life. You can't escape me.
Why did you betray me? Why did you take everything from me?
There they were, the two women who had trusted him, loved him, and whom he had destroyed. Lilith, the woman whose life he had stolen in a moment of madness, and Margaret, the innocent soul who had believed in him until the very end. They had come to claim him.
Please, this can't be happening. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Sorry won't save you, Ralph. You can't run from what you did.
You took everything from me. My future, my child. Why? We trusted you. You were supposed to protect us.
The cold touch of their hands sent a chill through Ralph's body. The weight of his sins pressed down on him, crushing him. He had nowhere to run, nowhere to hide.
This can't be happening. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
But no amount of pleading could change what had already been done. The two women, bound to him in death, had come for justice. And there would be no forgiveness.
You took our lives, Ralph. Now we take yours.
In his last moments, Ralph's mind shattered. The wind howled, the bells clanged, and the ghosts of his sins pulled him toward the edge of the belfry. And in the end, the priest who had run from his sins, who had sought refuge in the quiet village of Harlow, found only death waiting for him. He fell, not just from the belfry, but from grace itself. There was no one to mourn Father Ralph. No one to forgive him. Only the silent tolling of the bells, and the ghosts of the women who had finally claimed their revenge. The storm had passed, but the village of Harlow remained cloaked in an uneasy silence. The dawn's light cast a pale glow over the cobblestone streets, and the church bells, which had tolled so violently the night before, now hung still and silent in the morning air.
Did you hear? Father Ralph, they say he's dead.
Found him at the base of the church tower. God rest his soul. But there's something strange, isn't there? About the way he fell.
The villagers knew something was wrong, though they couldn't say what. Father Ralph had been a fixture in Harlow for years, his presence a calming force in their daily lives. But whispers had started long before his fall, whispers of things seen in the night, shadows moving where they shouldn't be.
Saw her. Up there, I saw a woman. She was crying.
Stop it, you're scaring us.
There were those who claimed to have seen something that night. Figures moving through the shadows, whispers carried on the wind. But no one dared speak of it openly. Not in Harlow. Not in the village where secrets were buried deeper than the graves in the churchyard.
He's gone now. But we are still here.
Harlow would never be the same. The priest who had come to offer salvation had left behind only fear. And though Father Ralph's body had been laid to rest, the ghosts of his sins remained. Watching. Waiting. The night cloaks Harlow Cathedral in an eerie silence, disturbed only by the echoes of footsteps and the occasional flicker of a candle. Margaret's confession has set in motion a series of dark events, leading to her sudden disappearance.
Father, I've told you everything. The truth must be known. I can't bear this guilt any longer, please, Father. I'm scared.
Sorry, I understand, Margaret. But we must be careful. There are forces at play here that are beyond our control.
The death of Father Ralph has left Harlow Cathedral shrouded in confusion and sorrow. As the town grapples with the mystery surrounding his final moments, an unexpected discovery will unveil hidden truths long kept in darkness.
We need to ensure we haven't missed anything. This place could hold clues to what really happened.
Let's start with Father Ralph's personal quarters. We should be thorough.
Hey, look at this. This panel seems out of place.
The panel, long hidden behind the facade of Father Ralph's room, has finally been disturbed. What secrets does it hold within its concealed depths?
This must be a hidden room. We need to check it out.
In the dim light, the hidden room reveals its secrets. The once concealed chamber now stands as a silent witness to the dark events that transpired.
Look at this. It's a letter from Margaret. It seems she knew more than we realized.
The truth, long buried within the walls of the cathedral, emerges from the shadows. The hidden room's secrets lay bare the tragic fate of Margaret and the dark actions of Father Ralph. The cathedral's secrets have been unveiled, casting a long shadow over the town of Harlow. The truth has been brought to light, changing the narrative of Father Ralph's death forever. The quiet aftermath of Father Ralph's death hides a deeper horror. As the investigation delves into the cathedral's shadowy corners, a chilling discovery reveals the true extent of the tragedy. As the dust settles on the mystery of Father Ralph's death, a hidden chamber within the cathedral becomes the focal point of a revelation so harrowing it shakes the town to its core. Among the shadows and dust, the hidden room holds secrets of a nightmarish ordeal. The bloodstains and the black veil whisper of a tragedy concealed for too long.
We need to be cautious. This room could hold crucial evidence.
This blood. It looks like something terrible happened here.
The bloodstains tell a story of pain and fear, hinting at a forced and harrowing procedure that took place within these walls. The implications of Father Ralph's actions are beginning to take shape.
This letter. It's written in blood. We need to see what it says.
The letter, a poignant and chilling confession, reveals Margaret's fate. Her words, written in blood, uncover the horrifying truth of her suffering and imprisonment. The letter, written in the blood of a broken soul, reveals the horrifying truth. Margaret's final message exposes the dark reality of her suffering and the cruel actions of Father Ralph.
So Margaret was here all along. This letter changes everything. We need to let the town know the truth.
The hidden room's grim revelation uncovers the truth behind Margaret's disappearance and the dark actions of Father Ralph. The truth, long buried in shadows, has finally come to light, altering the town's understanding of the tragic events. The shadow of Father Ralph's actions looms large over Harlow, and the truth about Margaret's fate will forever haunt the town's memory. The hidden room stands as a solemn reminder of the darkness that once lay concealed within the cathedral's walls. The confessional is a place of revelation and remorse, but tonight it becomes the setting for a darker fate. Margaret's confession has unearthed more than just secrets, it has unleashed a grim and terrifying consequence.
Margaret, you've said more than you realize. I cannot let this go any further.
Please, Father, I'm scared. You must understand. I was trying to... No, please. Let me go.
Dragged through the cathedral's shadowy passages, Margaret's cries of desperation fall upon deaf ears. Father Ralph's resolve is unshaken, driven by a dark intent to silence her forever.
Please, Father, don't do this. I'll tell everyone the truth, I promise. Just let me go now.
In the heart of darkness, Margaret's pleas are drowned out by the oppressive silence. The hidden room becomes the final stage for a tragic and horrifying resolution.
I cannot let this go any further. You've left me no choice. This must remain a secret for the good of all.
As the door closes on Margaret's fate, the hidden room becomes a tomb for the truth she carried. The cathedral's dark secrets are sealed away, leaving only echoes of her final moments. The cathedral stands silent once more, its walls holding the weight of dark deeds and hidden truths. Father Ralph's actions have sealed the fate of those who dared to challenge the silence.
If you are reading this letter, then I am no longer here to tell my tale in person. I am Margaret, the woman who once was reported missing and now lies silent within these walls. My story is one of betrayal, pain, and fear, one that needs to be told to bring light to the darkness that consumed me. Father Ralph, the man I trusted and revered, is the architect of my suffering. He came to Harlow under the guise of a benevolent priest, but his true nature was far darker than anyone could have imagined. I remember the day he arrived in our town, so charming and sincere. He was said to be sent here to bring peace and guidance to our community. Little did we know he sought refuge in this secluded place to escape his past sins, his own demons that haunted him. Our acquaintance began innocently enough. He showed a kindness and concern that was rare in these parts. I was naive and trusting, never suspecting that his kindness masked a sinister intent. As time went on, his interest in me grew more personal, cloaked in the pretense of pastoral care. I was drawn to him, believing his intentions were pure. One evening, he confided in me about his troubled past, speaking of a life of penance and redemption. I did not realize that this was merely a facade to lull me into a false sense of security. I was vulnerable and too trusting, and before I knew it, his affection turned into coercion. When I discovered I was with child, my world shattered. Father Ralph's demeanor changed entirely. What had once been affection turned to cold, calculated cruelty. He forced me to undergo a procedure to end my pregnancy, all while claiming it was for my own good. His methods were brutal and unforgiving. I was terrified and in immense pain, both physically and emotionally. In the aftermath of the procedure, I was confined to this very room, hidden from view. Father Ralph's facade of concern remained, but his true nature was revealed in the darkest of ways. I was to remain here, out of sight and out of mind. The black veil you see was once mine, and the bloodstains on the bed are a testament to the agony I endured. In my final moments, I mustered the strength to write this letter, hoping that it might someday be discovered, and that the truth would be known. My suffering was not in vain, and I implore you to uncover the truth behind my disappearance and the man who caused my demise. I am no longer here, but my story must be told for justice to prevail, with a heavy heart and a plea for truth. This is Margaret Rowland, missing from the town of Harlow.
This letter reveals everything. Father Ralph was hiding a dark secret, and Margaret's suffering was far worse than we imagined.
The hidden room stands as a somber testament to the horrors that transpired within its walls. Margaret's letter uncovers the truth of her tragic fate and the darkness that lay behind Father Ralph's facade. As the truth of Margaret's fate is unveiled, the town of Harlow is left to grapple with the grim reality of their former priest's actions. The hidden room and the letter serve as a haunting reminder of the darkness that once lurked in their midst.
This changes everything. Father Ralph's actions were far more sinister than we thought.
The hidden room has unveiled a tragic truth, casting a dark shadow over the town of Harlow. The secrets buried within these walls have finally come to light, revealing the true horrors behind Father Ralph's death. Even as time passes, the ghostly presence of the black-veiled lady lingers in Harlow. Her spectral form remains a chilling reminder of the dark secrets that once haunted the town.